He was clearly just a lowly janitor, yet he casually solved the math problem on the blackboard. But what he didn't know was that this was an advanced math problem, and the person who set the question was Professor Lambeau, a Fields Medal winner. Professor Lambeau initially thought it was a prank by a student, until he personally confirmed that the answer was not only completely correct, but the solution process was clear and concise. He thought one of his students had done it, but after asking around, no one dared to claim this glory. Lambeau instantly understood that a rare genius had been born in this top world-class university, so he issued another challenge, leaving a second difficult problem. This difficult problem took him and his colleagues 2.5 years to conquer. Anyone who could solve it could directly serve as a professor at the school. But unexpectedly, less than a day after the reward was posted, someone gave the answer that very night. Lambeau was just about to get off work and go home when he turned his head and found the school janitor writing and drawing on the blackboard. He wanted to teach this troublemaking guy a lesson, but the janitor cursed while running away, disappearing around the corner in the blink of an eye. Lambeau prepared to wipe away those graffiti, but the next second, he froze. Every stroke on the blackboard was exactly the same as the correct answer. No one expected that the one who defeated all the elites at MIT was actually a janitor. But why would such a genius bury his talent? The answer lay in his painful childhood. Will was born in a slum in South Boston. He was abandoned by his parents at a young age and changed foster homes 3 times, often suffering beatings and torture from his alcoholic foster father. However, fate gave him another gift, a mathematical talent that was almost miraculous. But for Will, this talent was not a gift, but a curse. He would rather bury it deep than use it to exchange for a life that did not belong to him. So he chose to fight the world with his fists and cover up his fragility with disdain. He hung out in street bars with his best friends, numbing himself in brawls and alcohol, wrapping his heart that had never been properly loved with layers of hard shells. When Lambeau found Will, he was being sued in court for fighting. In court, Will defended himself. He had no lawyer, yet he cited the U.S. Constitution and countless case precedents as if they were family treasures, leaving the judge and the opposing lawyer speechless. His criminal record was shockingly long: fighting, theft, assaulting a police officer. But what was incredible was that almost all charges were dismissed by Will relying on his own mouth. But Will was eventually sentenced, and to gain freedom, he had to pay a bail of $50,000. Not wanting to see Will's talent buried, Lambeau took the initiative to find him, stating he could pay the money. But he had 2 conditions: study math with him every week and accept psychotherapy. In this way, Will became Lambeau's capable partner in studying math. But in reality, being with him, Lambeau was more like a student. After Will's guidance, Lambeau could easily solve even the most complicated problems. Lambeau also appreciated this young man more and more, seeing the shadow of Einstein in him. Will could share his knowledge without reservation, but he was unwilling to open his heart to outsiders. He was like a precise emotional scanner, easily seeing through the disguises of all doctors. He read their autobiographies in advance and precisely stabbed at their most secret pains during therapy. Lambeau invited 5 top psychiatrists successively, but all failed in the end. With no other option, Lambeau turned to his former college classmate, Shawn. Shawn was a psychology expert who had retired from the university. He was equally brilliant, but was heartbroken by the death of his wife and gave up the academic glory that was within easy reach. Lambeau knew that perhaps only Shawn, who had similar broken experiences, could touch Will's true heart. Thus, Shawn met Will. But unlike others, Shawn did not start treatment immediately, but sat on the sofa and chatted with Will. Will stood up and observed, trying to find flaws in Shawn's mind from the surrounding environment. Soon he found a painting, in which a small boat was swaying in a storm. Will stated that this painting was just garbage, with complex lines and chaotic structure, definitely imitating some famous painters. Through this painting, Will guessed that Shawn must have had a painful past. In the storm, the waves constantly beat the crumbling small boat, and Shawn was the rower. No matter how hard he tried, he was forever trapped in this storm. Will finally found Shawn's weak point.
You married the wrong woman? Why'd she leave you? Was she, banging some other guy? If you ever disrespect my wife again, I will end you. I will end you. Time's up. Yeah.
In the first direct confrontation between the two, Shawn lost miserably, But what shocked Will was that when he teased those psychiatrists before, their reaction was first panic, then masking their anger, and then refusing to continue treating him. But Shawn was different. He was also stung, but he expressed his anger directly. What was even more different was that this man, who had been stung and provoked, agreed to continue treating him. Shawn's behavior broke Will's common understanding. But it was exactly this behavior that violated counseling norms that allowed Will to see a flesh and blood person. Shawn was actually like him, a person with inner trauma, and this was precisely conducive to establishing boundaries and a relationship of trust between the two parties. In the second meeting, Will's perception was further overturned. Shawn admitted that Will had indeed hurt him, even keeping him awake all night. But in this pain, he figured out a lot of things. Will was just a kid. He didn't understand what he was saying at all. The things Will learned were all obtained from others.
I bet you can't tell me what it smells like in the Sistine Chapel. You've never actually stood there and looked up at that beautiful ceiling. Seen that. But you can't tell me what it feels like to wake up next to a woman and feel truly happy. You may have even been laid a few times. Who could rescue you from the depths of hell. Known someone that could level you with her eyes. Through anything. Through cancer. You don't know about real loss.
He had never truly experienced them. You will only understand what loss is when you love something more than you love yourself. Will could learn everything, but he could never learn to feel love. His arrogance and confidence were just a defense against pain. This defense was a wall, making Will only dare to establish relationships with books, but not directly with the world. Shawn saw no confidence on Will's face, only an arrogant fool. He was indeed a genius to be envied, but deep down he was still a child who hadn't grown up. Shawn was willing to help Will walk out of his psychological trauma, but the premise was that Will had to take the initiative to open his closed heart. Shawn was willing to face Will sincerely. It just depended on whether Will was willing to reveal his true feelings. Finally, Will chose to continue, which meant Will was willing to try to make changes. But this process took time, so in the next 2 sessions, Will fell into silence for a long time. Shawn was also silent. He absolutely could not speak first, but waited for Will to speak. This silence had 2 meanings. First, he was telling Will, "You have the right to remain silent." Second, Will had to decide for himself whether to open his heart, rather than the psychiatrist tempting or pressuring him to reveal his feelings. Finally, after playing the staring game for a long time, Will took the initiative to speak. This meant his tightly closed heart began to loosen. It turned out that a few days ago he met a girl he liked in a bar. The girl was a Harvard student. She was beautiful and perfect, and he liked her very much. But he was afraid that after getting to know her deeply, he would destroy this feeling of perfection. But Shawn pointed out that Will was actually afraid of exposing his own imperfections. Not contacting anyone for a lifetime can indeed maintain the perfection of the first impression, but this only closes one's own heart. In love, exposing flaws is the foundation for enhancing feelings. To let Will understand this truth, Shawn told him the story of himself and his wife. Shawn recounted the little details with his wife.
My wife used to fart when she was nervous.
She had all sorts of wonderful little idiosyncrasies. She used to fart in her sleep. I'm sorry I shared that with you.
These seemingly awkward but incredibly real details gradually relaxed Will's originally tense nerves. He told Will that he should learn to accept his imperfect self, and then use a perfect vision to tolerate the imperfections of others. Shawn used his sincerity and frankness to knock open the door of Will's closed heart, bit by bit. But when Will asked Shawn if he had ever thought about remarrying, Shawn deliberately avoided the question. The next day, Will plucked up the courage and took the initiative to find Skylar. Skylar lost both of her parents at the age of 3. Aside from leaving her a large inheritance, they left her with little else, which made her path of growing up especially lonely. And Will had come this far also, without the company of family. The accidental meeting of 2 lonely souls made their feelings heat up rapidly. At the same time, Will's work at MIT was very smooth. Any difficult problem was easily solved in front of him. Seeing Will's condition getting better and better, Lambeau found Shawn, hoping to discuss Will's future plans as soon as possible, and then apply Will's talent to actual work to contribute to the country and even human development. But Shawn thought it was not suitable to discuss this issue now. Although Will was gifted, his mind was not yet mature. What job to choose and what kind of person to become should be decided by himself. As outsiders, all they had to do was guide Will to discover the potential within his heart, not to forcibly manipulate his life. For this reason, the two disagreed and a verbal conflict erupted. The argument here did not reach a result, and on the other side, Will's relationship also had problems. Soon after, Skylar would leave here to go to California for further studies, so she hoped Will could go with her. But facing his girlfriend's sincere request, Will revealed deep resistance. Long-term emotional neglect made him unable to face Skylar, who adored him. During his previous contact with Skylar, Will tried his best to show his excellent side to her. He concealed his miserable childhood experiences and family situation and fabricated the names of 12 fake brothers. He was afraid that after arriving in California, Skylar would discover his imperfections. He was afraid that his past would bring harm to Skylar, and afraid that he would eventually lose this beauty. In Will's growth process, successive abandonments as well as physical abuse and spiritual abandonment made him subconsciously resist changing from a familiar place to a new environment. But he couldn't say these thoughts at all, and could only find a random excuse to decline. However, these words made Skylar mistakenly think that Will didn't love her at all. Finally, a fierce quarrel broke out between them, and Will even directly proposed breaking up.
I love you. I want to hear you say that you don't love me. Because if you say that, then I won't call you.
I don't love you.
After returning to school, Will argued again because of the job Lambeau arranged for him. He mocked Lambeau for working hard all his life but failing to solve such a simple problem, while he could solve it in just a few hours. In a fit of anger, he burned the answer Lambeau had dreamed of. Lambeau rushed forward to save it in distress. Actually, he wasn't distressed about the paper, but distressed about the young man before him. This paper was just like Will. This problem was extremely simple for Will, but for Lambeau, it was a gap that could never be crossed. Will's mathematical talent was also a height that Lambeau could never reach in his life. He seemed to be rescuing the paper, but in reality, he wanted to rescue the genius boy in front of him. But Will personally ignited himself, closed his heart, and wasted his talent. Lambeau wished he had never met Will. Otherwise, he wouldn't be unable to sleep late at night, nor would he have to watch Will waste his talent. At this time, Will was like a hedgehog, constantly quarreling with people everywhere. In his conversation with Shawn, Shawn asked him what he wanted to do most, but he talked nonsense, saying he wanted to be a shepherd. If he really wanted to be a shepherd, he wouldn't be a janitor at MIT. Seeing that Will still couldn't face his heart directly, Shawn stood up and immediately drove him away. Instead, Will lashed back, calling Shawn a coward, saying that for all these years he had never dared to step out from the shadow of his grief, and that Shawn had no right to lecture him. Finally, Will was kicked out of the house by Shawn. Before Skylar left, Will still called her. He wanted to express his love for Skylar, but in the end, he chose to retreat. Skylar couldn't understand all this, and could only leave the city with disappointment. Will returned to the construction site, pouring out all the bad moods of these past few days onto the wall. Looking at his once high-spirited best friend who had become so depressed, Chucky finally spoke his mind. Chucky's words deeply hit Will's heart.
20 years, if you're still living here, coming over my house to watch the Patriots game, still working construction, I'll kill you. So when are you done with those meetings? You got something none of us have.
Oh, come on. Why is it always this? I mean, I owe it to myself to do this or that. What if I don't want to?
No. You don't owe it to yourself. It'd be an insult to us if you're still here in 20 years. Hanging around here is a waste of your time. Because I think maybe I'll get up there and I'll knock on the door and you won't be there. I don't know much, but I know that.
He found Shawn to apologize for his previous willfulness. At this time, Shawn was viewing Will's file. He brought his own perspective into Will's story, and the injuries he once suffered were vivid in his mind. The door to Will's heart opened a crack, and he finally told the unfortunate experience of being abused by his foster father. Shawn approached Will step by step, deciding to completely destroy Will's psychological defense.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. All right? It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Don't with me, all right? Don't me, Shawn, not you. It's not your fault.
I'm so sorry.
From guarded to hesitant to breaking down, Will finally hugged Shawn and cried aloud like a child. He completed this late self-redemption. He was no longer bound by the pain of the past, but bravely broke free from the shackles of the soul. He no longer resisted the job introduced by Lambeau, accepted his talent, and marched towards a new life journey. In the process of treating Will, Shawn also unlocked the shackles in his own heart, and his attitude towards life also changed. Next, he planned to travel around the world, no longer stopping his life's pace because of the sadness in his heart. On Will's birthday, his friends prepared a gift for him, a car they had personally modified. A few days later, Will drove to Shawn's house downstairs. He was very grateful to Shawn for letting him find himself. After putting a letter in the mailbox, he quietly drove away. Shawn noticed something strange here. He came downstairs and saw the open mailbox. On the other side, Chucky went to Will's house to look for Will as usual, but he knocked on the door for a long time without anyone responding. He wanted to find out what was happening through the window, only to find that the inside of the house was uncharacteristically clean and tidy. This also foreshadowed that Will's cluttered heart had healed. A smile appeared on Chucky's face. He knew that Will really left without saying goodbye as he had hoped. Although he was a little reluctant in his heart, he was sincerely happy for Will, because Will's journey is a more brilliant sea of stars and shouldn't be bound here.
Shawn, if the professor calls about that job, just tell him, sorry. I had to go see about a girl. Will. Son of he stole my line.
And at this time, Will was already on his way to California. At the end of the road, under the blue sky, at the junction of the endless open air, a brand new soul was marching towards the future. The movie ends here. Good Will Hunting, although it tells the story of a genius, actually tells the story of every ordinary one of us. Everyone has their own talents, but these talents may not appear so prominent, nor can they change their lives solely by relying on talent like the protagonist. But one thing is the same, that is, everyone should have their own suitable position. If you want to gain, first you have to understand acceptance. If you want to gain love, then you must accept someone walking into your heart. If you want to gain a career, then you have to accept the hardships of work. Will's road to redemption cannot be separated from four important people. Professor Lambeau discovered Will's talent and gave him the opportunity to change his destiny. Psychiatrist Shawn used sincerity and patience to open Will's heart bit by bit. Girlfriend Skylar used pure love to let Will see the beauty of life. Best friend Chucky used sincerity and companionship to give Will enough warmth and emotional support. But what really made Will grow up was his courage to face his fragility directly. The only one who can save you is always yourself. In life, aren't we all using various ways to disguise ourselves, using busyness to cover up loneliness, using strength to cover up fragility, and using smiles to hide tears? Will's story makes us understand that healing pain is not about forgetting the past, but learning to reconcile with the past. The most difficult subject in life is not solving math problems, but untying the knots in one's own heart. The most precious thing is not extraordinary talent, but the courage to face reality directly. Perhaps we are not geniuses like Will, but like him, we all possess the courage to reconcile with the past and make ourselves happy. This courage is the most amazing talent of yours and mine. May you meet a better self on this road.